Ladies and gentlemen, this morning a 71-year-old man passed away. Perhaps you knew him, perhaps you didn't, but we are all aware of what it means to face mortality, our own or that of someone close to us. It's a simple truth, and yet it's also profound, terrifying, and deeply meaningful. Today I want to focus on three key reflections: the inevitability of death, the weight of responsibility in life, and the lasting impact of a life well lived. We don't like to think about death. It's uncomfortable, it's sobering, yet avoiding it doesn't make it go away. It waits for all of us, patient, indifferent, and inevitable. We live in a culture that is obsessed with youth, with the idea that life stretches endlessly before us, and with distractions that numb us from the ticking clock. But ignoring death is a dangerous game, one that robs us of the clarity and purpose we might otherwise have. To live fully, we must confront mortality, not just intellectually, but with our whole being. When a person dies, whether they're 21 or 71, it feels like a tragedy because life has weight. It has value, it matters. And the fact that it ends makes that value even more significant. If we lived forever, there would be no urgency to improve, to grow, or to contribute. There would be no point in love or sacrifice, because every experience could be repeated endlessly. Death is the ultimate limit, and it forces us to live as if each day might be our last. And that's not just a cliche, it's the bitter truth. Yet, we're surrounded by messages that tell us to avoid this truth. We fill our time with entertainment, career ambitions, consumerism, anything to keep our thoughts from wandering into the darker corners of life. But those distractions come at a cost. When we live in denial of death, we lose the perspective that makes life worth living. The hard questions, what am I doing with my life? What's truly important, become easy to avoid. And in that avoidance, we waste our time on things that don't really matter. If we stop and truly confront the reality of our own mortality, something shifts. It's not just a matter of recognizing that life is short. It's about acknowledging the fragility of everything, the people we love, the things we work for, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. None of it is guaranteed to last. That recognition can feel crushing, but it can also be freeing. When we stop pretending we have endless time, we start paying attention. We notice the beauty of small moments, the laughter of a friend, the sound of rain on a window, the warmth of a hug. We stop postponing the things that really matter, reaching out to an estranged family member, expressing gratitude, taking a risk on something we care about. Life takes on an urgency, not because we're afraid, but because we're awake to its preciousness. Confronting death also forces us to confront our regrets. No one reaches the end of their life without wishing they'd done some things differently. But regrets can be powerful teachers. They show us where we've strayed from the path of meaning, and they give us the chance to correct our course. The worst thing we can do is ignore them and hope they'll disappear. Instead, we should face them head on. Imagine a 71-year-old man lying on his deathbed. He knows his time is up. His thoughts won't be on the trivial frustrations or fleeting pleasures that filled so much of his life. He'll be thinking about the people he loved, the moments he gave of himself, and the times he stood for something greater than his own comfort. If he lived with integrity and purpose, there will be peace in those final moments. But if he avoided life's deeper responsibilities, those regrets will haunt him until the end. Death doesn't care about our social status, our accomplishments, or our plans for the future. It comes when it comes, but what we do with the time before it arrives is entirely up to us. By confronting death, we gain the power to live deliberately. We stop waiting for the perfect moment to change or improve, and we start acting now. We begin to recognize that every day is a gift, not a guarantee. There's something deeply humbling about recognizing our own mortality. It reminds us that we're not the center of the universe, that we're part of something vast and uncontrollable, and that's okay. In fact, it's necessary. By facing the reality of death, we shed the illusion of control and learn to embrace life for what it is, a fleeting, beautiful, fragile experience, one that's meant to be lived with eyes wide open and hearts fully engaged. A 71-year-old man passed away this morning, and so will all of us someday. Responsibility is not a concept that we like to discuss much in modern society. We're often encouraged to pursue happiness above all else, whether through freedom, personal fulfillment, or the avoidance of discomfort. Yet, happiness is fleeting. It comes and goes with the changing circumstances of life. What truly provides lasting meaning is not the pursuit of pleasure, but the acceptance of responsibility. Responsibility is not easy and it's not glamorous. It often feels like a burden. We take on obligations, relationships, jobs, personal projects, and they weigh on us. We're expected to show up, to stay committed, to be accountable for our actions. It's tempting to think that life would be better if we could just let go of all those obligations and do whatever we want. But that's a false promise. When we step away from our responsibilities, we often feel an initial sense of relief. There's no longer anyone relying on us, no expectations to meet, no duties to fulfill. But over time, that relief turns into something much darker. Without meaningful work or relationships to anchor us, we begin to drift. Life feels empty. The activities that once seemed pleasurable become dull and meaningless because they're not connected to anything larger than ourselves. We start to lose our sense of purpose. On the other hand, when we take on responsibility, we give our life structure and direction. It forces us to rise to the occasion, to become more than we were before. Responsibility pushes us to grow because it puts something on the line. When someone depends on us, whether it's a family member, a coworker, or a friend, we can't afford to stay stuck in old patterns of behavior. We have to evolve. And that evolution is the very thing that gives life meaning. Consider the responsibility of raising a child. There are few tasks in life more demanding. It requires constant attention, sacrifice, and patience. You can't walk away from it when it gets difficult. You have to show up day after day and do your best, even when your best doesn't feel like enough. But that responsibility also brings unparalleled meaning. Through the act of caring for another life, we discover strengths we didn't know we had. We learn what it means to love selflessly, and we leave a legacy that will last long after we're gone. The same principle applies to other areas of life. When we take on the responsibility of a job or a career, we commit to contributing something of value to the world. It's not just about earning a paycheck. It's about showing up and doing the work that needs to be done. It's about facing challenges head on and finding ways to solve problems. And it's about becoming someone who can be trusted, someone who takes pride in their efforts. That sense of responsibility transforms even the most mundane tasks into acts of meaning. Responsibility also teaches us resilience. Life is full of suffering and there's no way to avoid it. But when we take responsibility, we stop seeing ourselves as victims of circumstance. Instead, we become agents of change. We accept that life is hard and we choose to do the hard things anyway. In doing so, we build strength. We become the kind of person who can endure pain, setbacks, and failure without giving up. And that resilience is one of the greatest sources of meaning we can ever find. Many people shy away from responsibility because they're afraid of failure. They think, what if I take on this task and I can't handle it? What if I let people down? But failure is not the enemy. It's part of the process. When we fail, we learn, we adapt, we get better. And in the end, it's not our successes that define us. It's our willingness to keep taking responsibility no matter how many times we stumble along the way. There's also a spiritual dimension to responsibility. When we take responsibility, we acknowledge that life is not just about our own wants and needs. It's about serving something greater than ourselves. That something greater could be our family, our community, our values, or even the future of humanity itself. By dedicating ourselves to those higher purposes, we transcend our own limitations. We become part of a story that is larger than any individual life. And in that story, we find our deepest sense of meaning. At its core, responsibility is an act of courage. It's a decision to face life's challenges with open eyes and a willing heart. It's a declaration that we are not here to simply consume or enjoy. We are here to contribute, to grow, and to make the world a little bit better than we found it. Responsibility is not a burden to be avoided. It's the path that leads to everything that truly matters in life. When we think about legacy, we often imagine grand gestures, building monuments, writing books, or achieving fame that outlasts our own lives. But the truth is that a legacy is not reserved for the famous or the powerful. Every single person leaves behind a ripple of consequences, shaping the lives of others in ways both large and small. The question is not whether we will leave a legacy, but what kind of legacy we will leave behind. And the answer to that question depends on how we live each day. A life well lived is not measured by material success or public recognition. It is measured by the impact we have on others, the kindness we show, the wisdom we impart, and the courage we demonstrate in the face of life's difficulties. The people we interact with, our family, our friends, our coworkers, even strangers, carry pieces of us with them long after we are gone. In this way, we are all builders of legacies, whether we realize it or not. One of the most important aspects of leaving a meaningful legacy is the relationships we cultivate. Human connection is the heart of life, and the way we treat those around us has far-reaching consequences. A kind word spoken at the right moment, a gesture of empathy, or the simple act of being present for someone in need. These things may seem small, but they can change the course of another person's life. And when we consistently show up for the people we care about, we leave behind memories and lessons that will be passed down through generations. Yet relationships are not easy. They require patience, forgiveness, and the willingness to put others before ourselves. We all make mistakes. Sometimes we hurt the people we care about most. But part of living a meaningful life is learning how to take responsibility for those mistakes and working to repair the damage we've done. Reconciliation and redemption are powerful acts that can transform both us and the people we love. And in the process, they add depth and meaning to the legacy we leave behind. Beyond our relationships, the choices we make in our daily lives also contribute to our legacy. Every action we take, no matter how small, has consequences. When we choose honesty over deceit, integrity over convenience, and compassion over indifference, we set an example for others to follow. And those examples have a way of spreading. The values we live by today can shape the character of those who come after us. Consider the legacy of a parent who works tirelessly to instill a sense of responsibility and resilience in their children. Those lessons may not be appreciated in the moment, but over time, they become part of the child's identity, and when that child grows up and passes those same lessons on to the next generation, the parent's legacy lives on. In this way, even the smallest acts of discipline, encouragement, or support can have a ripple effect that extends far beyond our own lifetime.